Welcome to Wired on the Word, the Bible Society of South Africa's official podcast. Welcome back to Wired on the Word, the podcast where we look at the Bible and all things Bible related. This morning with me we have a special guest, Rocco Hough. Rocco was very much involved in the translation of the English Bible for the deaf and the Afrikaans Bible for the deaf. Rocco, welcome.
Thank you so much, Leon.
And then also joining me is my colleague, Ashley Roman.
Hello, listeners.
Okay, Rocco, to start off with, why do the deaf people need their own Bible? Why isn't the Bibles that are already in print in both Afrikaans and English sufficient?
The deaf people came to me a long time ago and asked me, can you please translate a Bible for us in an easy-to-read version, because we don't understand the words. Some of the elders who were ordained in the church, they said, I'll accept, but remember, I can't read the Bible. Their vocabulary is very small and distinct. Remember, when we were babies, we heard our mother's voices, all the sounds around us. Even in the mother's womb, at 26 weeks, your hearing is developed in full. When you start to hear and your brain starts to work with the sounds. A hearing child can just lay there and listen to the voices around him, and he will automatically start to speak at about 1.5 years of age. Deaf people will lay there for 30, 40 years without starting to speak.
Sure.
Obviously, they can't hear. Their first communication prikkels is when they can figure out that the sequence of one's lips that's talking to me is exactly the same as the previous one, and they can locate the situation.
So recognizing patterns.
Recognize. You can't lip read if you don't know the language.
Okay. So
you've got to learn the language. So so the deaf people, if they don't go to the school for the deaf, and if they aren't taught at a very, very slow rate, then they won't be able to speak. We've got some elders in our old age home who never went to school, who had zero communication abilities. With signing, obviously there's an easier way of communication. You can go a little bit further, but so that's the answer. They don't have the vocabulary. They didn't learn the vocabulary. Remember, when they go to school, normally they've got to go at 3 years of age. That was before cochlear implants and all the fancy hearing aids. For most of Africa, that still stays the same.
Okay.
They go to school at 3. If they go at 5 or 6, then it limits their capability of language tremendously. They went to school at 3, and they start to learn language, and they never catch up. In South Africa, we've had 0.5% of the deaf people that matriculated, 1 out of 200. And unfortunately, that figure has dropped quite a lot.
Wow.
So that is the situation. The average vocabulary and language skills of an adult deaf, according to research, is that of a 8-year hearing child.
Oh, goodness.
That's adults, 8 year. That's more or less. So we had to formulate the Bible in a way that deaf people can understand, and I think we were successful in the translation.
Sure, fantastic. So how did you approach Bible translation from within that context?
Leon, deaf people they don't love reading, but they do. They do send SMS texts, they send faxes a long time ago, letters, emails. So they do have a capability, but it's very limited. We had to go and research and look the way they are reading, the meaning that certain words has got for them, And we used that, and we tried to formulate the Bible in that way. Obviously, a lot of words they don't comprehend, so we had to make use of footnotes. And in the Afrikaans Bible for the deaf, we used 103. In the Afrikaans Bible for the deaf, we used 18,000 footnotes. In the English Bible for the deaf, we had to use 103,000 footnotes.
Sure.
That's why the Bible is so thick. There's more footnotes than text. So that poses a huge problem. But with the illustrations, almost 200 of them, they found a very big help and support, because if you can see something, it's sometimes you can't really explain it in words, but if you have a picture of it in a drawing. And most of those pictures we asked a deaf artist, please can you draw this thing, it must show this, and explain the word in a certain sense.
Rocco, you're also a ordained minister in the Dutch Reformed Church at a congregation that is
For the deaf.
The concepts, and the Bible is full of very difficult concepts. How does one go about telling them or explaining those concepts to someone like that?
Difficult question. One learns to speak verbally and not nouns. Like in the Afrikaans Bible, say the uitverkiezing, the election, difficult word. You go about and explain verbally, God has elected and he chose some people. So, and you use that concept. When you come to idioms, that's taboo. You can't use idioms because most of them, 95%, is not recognizable. There are some idioms, especially visually idioms, that's usable, and you can use that. For instance, no, sorry, my hands are cut off. I can't help you. It's very visual. And in the Bible translation, we try to use a lot of visual things. Like, for instance, the disciples were amazed. Their mouths hung open. One in Psalms, not Psalms, when David knew that the baby from Bathsheba are going to die, he saw that his personnel were whispering. So we translate, he saw they were talking about behind their hands.
Okay.
Which makes sense, both hearing and deaf. So we try to incorporate a lot of visual aspects into the translation, and that helped quite a lot.
Sure.
I'd like to know, when you were doing the actual translation, did you work with a committee of people? Was it you alone doing the translations, or how did the actual translations work?
With the Afrikaans translation, that was our first step. We didn't know exactly how to go about. We had 7 professors working with us. So they first drafted a translation, which is the actually meaning of the text, and then they tried to make it a little bit easier to let us understand. Then we had a committee, a deaf committee, who had to make the text deaf friendly. And then we had to pass it back to them, and obviously you can't satisfy everyone. Yeah. And lots of the translation verses were done with a feeling of, okay, this is not exactly but it's the best we can do. We've learned quite a lot with that translation. With the English translation, I made use of the Afrikaans translation in a quite a large extent. And because we did learn a lot with the first one, we could figure our way between the two difficult poles most of the times. And we could formulate. So I did the first draft myself with my wife. She was our first English interpreter. She helped me quite a lot. Then we sent it to the theological committee, the source language experts, Prof. Bart Oberholzer and Prof. Hermie van Zyl.
Was that to make sure that
To make
everything
sure,
was true to the source text?
you see, you cannot translate in any translation. You can't translate exactly the same as the Greek. It's not possible,
Yes.
because the Greek is so rich. But at least they had to see if this translation, this proposal, is near enough to the
Okay, so as close as possible.
exactly.
Yeah.
They were satisfied. We sent it to the deaf committee. We had 3 groups of deaf working, about 8 or 9 per group, with an not an interpreter, but a person that helped them. So we sent the text to them. They had to read it and to mark every word that they don't understand. But lots of those words that they think they understand,
Yes.
they understood it in the wrong way.
Okay.
Like they would say, Jacob walked to the well, and they would have a sign for good, well.
Oh,
So
I
no,
see.
that's the wrong meaning.
Okay.
So these interpreters and the people in charge of the deaf groups had to ask them, fine, you say you understand that, read it back to me in sign language. So that person could see exactly where they don't. A word like confess your sins. They don't know the word confess. There's a footnote in. But they do know the word confuse.
Okay.
And deaf people don't have any problem just changing a few letters to make it understandable. Because that is the way that they normally lip read. You can only follow 26%. That is the best lip readers. 26% from a person's lips. There are so many nouns that you don't, words, sounds that you don't see. En if you get bilabiale lipbewegings, mama, papa, baba, is exactly the same. If you have it in context, or you put a sign to next to it, you can understand it. So normally, when hearing people speak, they try to follow. They don't understand 70%, so they've got to try to figure out what this person says. And that's why, they just force it into the next. Well, we had this instance in Norlatando School for the Deaf. I used to go weekly for the religious education, and I used to teach them a song, put it on a board, and say first see the words, then we put the signs on. But some of them are clever. When they see the word, they put the sign in, and the word was, I've got Jesus in my heart. And they said, Jesus in my, and they showed something with their ears. Said, no, not Jesus in my ears, he's in my heart. They recognized here, but not heart. Just chuck away the T, don't need the T. So that is the way that deaf people normally lip read, and this is exactly the same when they read difficult words.
So it's a question of filling in the gaps.
Filling in the gap. And that was the main challenge that we had with the English Bible for the deaf. We could not use words or concepts that they maybe could force into a different and incorrect understanding. Now you will know how many concepts in the Bible where some of the translators will say, well, it can be this, it can be that or that. We couldn't do that. We had to make the most responsible choice and say this is what we think it says. And if there's any situation where they could misunderstood, we had to fill that gap and say this is what it means. So that was a big challenge, and that's why the Bible for the Deaf went further than all the other translations in realizing the need of the readers and to give them something that's understandable. Because you can't leave an interpretation to them. They don't have the tools that the interpreters got. And they won't know when they go wrong, where the translator will know that. So you've got to make the choice for them and say, this is what we believe is the best, that the word says.
Rocco, you mentioned that when you started with the English translation for the deaf, you based that heavily on the Afrikaans, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So all the heavy lifting was done with the Afrikaans translation?
Exactly.
Okay, so because the Afrikaans was as close as what you could get to the source text, it was a safe starting point for the English translation.
Quite so.
All right.
The professors that we had, very, very good. They were the best in the country at that stage, and they were very strict on, you've got to translate exactly what they says. But now you would know, in Hebrew and Greek, there's a lot of ways people talk. For instance, I would never say the Israelites. I would say the children of Israel. We used to talk about that in the bushveld. Oh, that Afrikaans, that's leeuwsekund. That's the son of a lion, son of a jackal.
Son of a gun.
You use the son of, which is just a way that the Hebrew people talked. Now you come to the bull, to the calf that was adored after the Ten Commandments. The son of a bull. That was no calf, that was a bull. Because they had to adore and worship the power. But because all the translations used the calf, we were kind of, okay, let's make it a bull calf. But so you got some Hebrew and Greek ways of saying. Greek would normally start with the word kai, which means and. Now, one of the professors said, but there's a kai, you must translate the kai. He said, we can put it in, but then the deaf will ask, this and what? They look for some meaning that is not there, because that's only a way of speaking in that language.
Okay.
So you had to get past all those kind of stuff, and eventually, from the reader's point of view, what do they understand? What do they understand with this formulation? And we had, with the Afrikaans, obviously, lots of Afrikaans groups of deaf, and we sent that to all the Afrikaans churches. With the English Bible for the deaf, we used the deaf groups. We did send to all people that would like to participate, you're welcome, and also all the churches. And it went well, I think, because when we almost finished, the Bible Society asked us to also translate the apocryphal books, the deuterocanonical books. And we did that, and we said, but wait, the Roman Catholic Church are very strong on the deuterocanonical books. We'd like to get their opinion. And they came in and they said, wonderful, just go ahead. We won't like to try and invent the wheel again. We're satisfied with that. So we're quite satisfied that we did translate and recognize all the churches. If there's any differences that you would like, and we had a look at it, and we formulated in a way that 95% of the churches would be satisfied.
I've heard that if the deaf could choose, they would rather have a Bible in sign language, because that is their home language, heart language,
Quite
after
right.
all.
Quite right.
The challenges in putting a Bible together that is in sign language, what are those?
Masanyani here with the Bible Society and myself are actually kind of members of the Hands with Words project in Cape Town that Lisa is doing.
That's an organization that is busy
Hands with
with...
Words, very busy. Translating a Bible into sign language is extremely difficult. There's a lot of interpretation that you don't exactly know, well, how far did he stand from, what's the intensity, what is the expressions, facial expressions. There's a lot of interpretations that you've got to make as a translator, and I'm satisfied that the work that has been done is not bad. I think that's good enough. It's very slow. There's a lot of research and stuff to be done. The main problem, in South Africa, we've got 11 sign language.
Sure.
We've sent, I told Lisa those days, Lisa, go to Kenya. They've got the best, in Nairobi, the best sign language Bible project that I know of.
Oh.
She went there.
Is that in Africa or in the world?
It's difficult to compare it with the world. America, obviously, they started first ASL, American Sign Language Bible. Problem is that a written, printed Bible has got a shelf life almost 26, 30 years. Then the language starts to get too old and you've got to translate. Sign language is not a fixed medium. It changes. And we found that in sign language Bibles, after 11, 12 years, you've got to change it. We had children at deaf members with deaf children that went to Worcester. Same school, parents with their children go there. When they come home weekends and the children talk, they say, "What do you say? We can't understand you."
Can you just explain that to us? Just explain why or how language changes after 26 to 30 years and why you have to make another translation then.
Firstly, spelling. With the Afrikaans Bible, we had about 160 different words, spelling types from 1983. In the English Bible, we used the NIV as our main source. In the English Bible, we, let's say the older NIV, I think it was 1984 to 2011, there's about 600-700 different spelling types. That's only in the spelling. Ways of talking. We used to say in the older translation, a man should do this. And that meant a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. Today you can't say that. If you say a man, they'll ask, what about the woman? Mm. So the role of female in the society changed.
It's also cultural changes.
It's a cultural change. And I think the changes are getting more rapid. Mm-hmm. So where the Bible translations did last for 26 to 30 years, I think that the term will shorten. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, but in the sign language, in the deaf world, there's so many factors that influence the language. Computers, rockets, cell phones, and so many things that changes the language, and they accept a new term. We had the first few chapters of Genesis from the ASL. It was fantastic. The guy used to not only translate, but do it poetically. It was so good. And then we heard after 20 years then, sorry, we can't use it anymore. Mm. It's not understandable. Mm.
I suppose it's much like we don't, in today's, in modern age, we don't speak the same way that they did in the Victorian eras, or language becomes archaic after time. So exactly. I guess it applies in the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've got children. No. Not even when they are teenagers. Before that, what do you say when they send you some text? You don't understand it. Yeah. They've got to, and that is a couple of years. Yes. So you can imagine after a long years. So that is one of the problems, obviously, because Greek and Hebrew texts were written thousands of years ago, and now you've got to try to make it understandable, and a lot of words. It's not the same anymore. A simple example. If you go to America, they say they're going to have a braai. Fine, you go there. Where's the braai? It's patties on a gas plate. Yeah. So no.
It's a barbecue.
That's called cultural differences. Okay, that's a little bit off the point. Sorry. Cut that, please.
If I might ask on a bit more of a personal note, what ignited your passion to work with and for and alongside the deaf community?
Actually, I didn't want to do it. In fact, I was called upon in my final year of theological studies to come and help out with the deaf congregation. Well, for me, it's a part-time job, earning a little money. We accepted the job. And after 2-3 weeks, I told my wife, listen, we can't stay here. I see with this congregation, with the deaf, it's not only a language problem, it's cultural, it's financial, it's social, it is so many difficulties that I'm not prepared to stay here. And I hear from the people that at the end of this year they would like to call another minister. And I'm telling you, my wife, if we stay here to the end of the year, they're going to call us. Yeah. We've got to move quickly. And 10 days, 12 days after that, nothing spectacular happened. I just felt the Lord said, this is your place. This is your vocation. I want to use you here. And that was wonderful because I've accepted that. And after that, you can imagine in the congregation for the deaf, financially and everything, there's a lot of problems. But if you know where you've got to be, it's fine. The moment you start doubting, that'll be, I mean, you could have been in the richest congregation. If you start doubting, that's not the place. So fortunately, I had that certainty that the Lord wants to use me. And I, for a long time, said, if the Lord wants to move me, a phone call will not be enough. I would like to see it black and white. Then I'll consider. Now, when the translation opportunity came, I thought that was a kind of that's a better, I can serve more deaf with that. And I accepted that. Kind of a promotion. So and fortunately, when you become deaf and you learn to love their ways of thinking and talking and doing, it becomes part of you. Okay. And that's why we will never move away from the deaf. When we started out, when we went on holiday, you know, here Platteland, Northern Cape, I used to phone the police station, or those days it was Centrale, yeah. The telephone. I said, listen, is there any deaf people in town? Yes, there's Anniki, and she'll be home now, you know. You go there, we've got a prayer meeting, you know. That was enjoying it. It was part of
seeking out your community.
Yeah, not because I'm faithful or good at. We just enjoyed it. That's what we did.
And how do you communicate with the deaf? Do you
sign language?
So you've learned sign language.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in fact, at this stage, we are courting another minister, and one prerequisite from all the members, he must be able to speak sign language. Because for a time we did not have signing ministers. So you've got to go through an interpreter. It's not so good, and so it's very important for the deaf. If they've got to have someone that understands their signs and that he can convey his message in sign language. So it's important.
Fantastic.
The deaf community's receipt of these Bibles, how was that?
The English Bible for the deaf was and is so good that countries from Ghana, Rwanda, and they all send us, please send us Bibles, We gave some of the Bibles for free, but the transport to Ghana, I've made a request here at the Bible Society, and more than a year after that, it wasn't delivered. And Dirk told me, but listen, there's no infrastructure in Ghana. So we had to get a courier to take the Bibles to Ghana. So the Bibles, the cost of the courier is about 4 or 5 times more than the Bibles. So, and we started, maybe I can just say, we started a project where we would like any person that goes up to Africa, churches or organizations or people on holiday, can you please take 3 Bibles with? Because we've promised all the churches for the deaf, we will give you 3 Bibles for free. If you want more, you can order from the Bible Society. So that project is going on quite well. Okay. But okay, that was the English Bible. Your question was
the deaf community.
How did they accept it? The Afrikaans Bible was the first, and that was a great breakthrough. We had some guys that could read a little bit, maybe better than the other deaf people, who said, I started to read the Bible and I could not go to sleep. I read through till the sun came up. Oh, wow. Because this was the first book or literature in understandable deaf language. In fact, I had to do a thesis on this. The thesis was writing Afrikaans for the deaf, written Afrikaans for the deaf, because that's obviously different from the speaking, the words. And when you speak, you communicate, you can use signs, and the lip reading is not bad. But the moment they write and they read, it's a different level. So we had to use their own SMSs and their own way of writing and reading, and we used that. But so it was, the first one was very difficult, because we didn't know, we know we had to jump from what the Bible says, the text, Greek, to what they understand. And you didn't know how far to jump. Sometimes we jumped too far, sometimes not enough. With the second one, that was sorted out mostly, and we could do a better translation than the first one.
Can you perhaps just also talk to us about how the Bible for the deaf became the Bible for everyone?
Bible came out, Bible for the deaf. Very soon, the Bible Society realized there's a lot of hearing people that would also like to use this text. And very soon, there were more Bibles sold to hearing people than deaf people. So they had these two Bibles, two covers, and they came to us and said, listen, would it be okay if they drop the cover, the Bible for the deaf, for the Bible for everyone? And we said, no problem, we've got what we needed, a text. In on the back page in the front of the Bible for everyone, it states this is actually the Bible for the deaf. You can read it fine, and there's quite a lot of people that need a Bible like that, because you can imagine in a country like South Africa, our literacy level goes down at a speed. So more and more people would like to use a Bible.
Rocco, if I can just jump in, this is the Afrikaans Bible that we're talking about now, yeah?
Yeah, that's the Afrikaans. So we said, no problem. Obviously, the question you asked, some deaf people didn't know about this change, and they were looking for the Bible for the deaf. They can't find it. So that's the job of the churches and the deaf communities to tell them, remember, the Bible for everyone is actually the Bible for the deaf.
Okay, but you said it does specify inside the Bible.
Inside the Bible,
that it is actually the Bible for the deaf.
That's right.
Okay.
The English Bible, when we translated it, very soon we realized there will be a large number of people that also would like to read this. And the Bible Society decided, okay, in the Afrikaans Bible, the deaf people are limited to about, say, 10,000 people. In the English Bible for the deaf, our market was Africa. With the 10 million deaf people in Africa, that is a market on its own. And because the text was accessible to a lot of people, they said, okay, fine, let's alter this text. And they are busy with it, I don't know how far. But some of the expressions that is a little bit too much deaf-friendly. They're going to ease out, and they are busy with a new, and that will be also the Bible for everyone. So with the English Bible, there will be two separate translations.
Thank you, Rocco, for joining us today and for talking about these projects. In future, do you hope to be part of any reviews or any other biblical materials or Bibles that will be developed for the deaf?
I will be very glad to be part of it.
Awesome. So we're happy to have you back anytime, and thank you once again for joining us.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Wired on the Word podcast, brought to you by the Bible Society of South Africa.